Hey guys! Well, we have a surprise visitor to my channel. We have Hugh Newman. I always call him New Human. He's a writer. He has written more than 5 books. He explores ancient mysteries. He knows, all the ancient sites of England like the back of his hand. He has learned so much about history. He talks about giant skeletons found around the world. He focuses on Stonehenge. He lives at a walkable distance from Stonehenge. And I've been to England. I explored Stonehenge and Avebury and other monuments with Hugh Newman. And I'm going to do a tour with Hugh Newman from July 22nd to July 28th. So I'm very excited to bring Hugh Newman on this podcast so we can learn more about the mysteries of ancient England. Thank you for coming, Hugh.
Good to see you here, Praveen. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, all good, all good. Yeah, I'm just sitting in my kind of cottage in the Stonehenge landscape, which is quite haunted actually. Yeah, maybe you'll see a ghost when you come and visit. But it's pretty epic. I mean, there's mounds just near where I live. Stonehenge is a 10-minute walk away across Salisbury Plain, so it's quite a beautiful place to live, to be honest with you. And I'm delighted you can come over and bring your guests over because it's going to be an epic adventure.
Yeah, we already have more than 10 people signed up, but we want to have a larger group. I mean, I never take more than 20-25 people in my tours of Thailand and Cambodia. But you are the man in England, not me, right? So I focus on India and Southeast Asia, and I know all the mysteries there. But when I came to England, I was blown away by what I saw. And can we start with the giants of England? And can you tell me more about the giants found in ancient England?
You wouldn't believe how many giants. Let me just show you this to start with. Let me just quickly get this out because look, this is the book. This is the book that me and Jim Vieira put together, Giants of Stonehenge and Ancient Britain, and we'll be getting into this, throughout the tour, obviously. And but what I do is, though, I think it's best if I get some images up because you're going to want to see some of the sites, some of the accounts that are focused around this particular mystery. So let's do that now, and so we can get a bit more of a visual aspect to this. So obviously, we're going to be going to many sites on this tour. We're actually going to meet a giant, and I'll get into that in a moment. Okay, this is the tour. We're going to be going on. This is just a few slides I've got together for you there. You can see the image on the left there. That's actually a very old image of Merlin and Stonehenge and a giant there as well. So this is actually us at Stonehenge when you were here last time, Praveen. We were like walking up the avenue, which stretches out, which is a line to the summer solstice, and walking up to the stones themselves with the heel stone there, which is actually part of the main, angle of the sunrise on the solstice itself. We're actually going to be very close to the solstice. We're not going to be too far away from it in July. And this is what we're going to be doing when we get together. And we must remember the first name recorded of Stonehenge was the Giant's Dance. It wasn't Stonehenge. And Stonehenge is like a later name. It means hanging stones. But the original earliest name of Stonehenge was the Giant's Dance. This comes from this Welsh Coria Gigantum from a book that was written way back in the 12th century. And so there's a whole kind of story about that as well. But yeah, the giants of Stonehenge, this is where it gets a bit strange. So a huge amount of data myself and my good friend and co-author Jim Vieira collected over the years. And we realized that you have to kind of consider that the giants aren't just in North America, which is what we focused on before, but there's stories, there's legends, there's skeletons all over the British Isles, including Stonehenge. And so we've collected so many accounts. Just in the book, we had 250 accounts. We even have the Queen there, the former Queen, with a giant skeleton of Charles Byrne that was on display in London.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So
so where is that skeleton found at the Stonehenge? You say there's like a 14 feet, 10-inch giant skeleton found, right? I mean, I myself had collected hundreds of newspaper clips. When I lived in the U.S., I used to collect the newspaper clips from the archives, and there's like giant skeleton news everywhere, right? 100 years ago, all over the U.S. And now, when we go back, like when we go to the Pittsburgh Museum, or when we go to Miami and see what happened to those giant skeletons, they keep saying, well, I mean, we've given everything to the Smithsonian Museum, right?
that is
Now,
true. Yeah, that is true in North America for sure. The Smithsonian but they do that here as well. That is done here a lot. There's a lot of stuff that's gone missing. And so when it comes to Stonehenge, so we have this 14-foot 10-inch one. This was discovered in the 1500s by actually Thomas Eliot, a kind of famous scholar at the time. And there was another one discovered in 1719 as well, which which was 9 foot 4. And these were both found near Salisbury, which is the nearest city or town to um, Stonehenge itself. But we'll get into. I want to get into like some other stuff to do with that in a while, because when we go to Salisbury itself, there's actually giant lore, like folklore, associated with the town that goes back to the 1400s. So it's bizarre how you have these discoveries, but then you have all these myths as well associated with Stonehenge. I mean, it's said that the stones of Stonehenge, for example, originally came from the furthest reaches of Africa, brought over by giants. And then they were placed in a place in Ireland. Then they moved to Stonehenge with Merlin doing his business. So there's a whole story associated with that. And one of the sites that completely blows my mind, and I think yours as well, is Avebury, which is the kind of the big site, the big kind of megalithic area just north of here. And here we have it here. This is like what's called the Serpent Temple. I know you visited here. We went there. We did some stuff there. And so what are your thoughts on this place?
no, I thought it was fantastic. This is a giant site. This is huge, right? It's bigger than Stonehenge, much bigger. And sometimes I wonder if this is connected to the Serpent Mound in Ohio. And we have a lot of snakes. We talk about the Naga. We talk about in India and Southeast Asia, we have similar structures. We have these snake-shaped effigies, carvings, temples all around, and we call them Naga. Mostly they're known as Naga, but they're also known as Sarpa. We still call them Sarpa, which comes from the same name, serpent, where it comes from same root word, serpent, seraph. Seems to be seraphim, mentioned in the Bible, mentioned in ancient Sanskrit texts, mentioned all over the Europe. So we can see kind of a similar pattern associated with the serpents, which is very interesting to me. And sometimes I wonder if all this is connected to the Serpent Mound in North America, in Ohio as well. I really love that place. And then I also wanted to ask you about the West Kennet Long Barrow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a little bit. I've got a couple of shots of Avebury here. I just want to show you, because this is in the same landscape, basically. Exactly the same. This is the landscape of Avebury and West Kennet. Here's a couple of sort of reconstructions, which are really cool, and a group standing just next to two of the stones, just a couple of the stones there. There you go. Absolutely gigantic, ridiculous size. Oh, I actually got a bit of music on that accidentally. And there's lots of geometry associated with this, and this all connects with West Kennet as well. So there's a whole kind of system, like a landscape system in place here. And you can see, actually, you talk about North America. This is actually some earthworks in North America, the Portsmouth earthworks, which are, between, I think, Kentucky and Ohio. And I think Ohio's literally on the south there. And this is virtually the same design as Avebury, which is utterly bizarre. So there could be connections with Serpent Mound and other places like that. So I think it's pretty important to kind of keep your mind open when it comes to this. And this just shows you the landscape. So here we do have West Kennet linked with this because we have alignment, straight line ley lines going through these sites. We have earth energies, the Michael and Mary lines, and many other things in this whole area. And we'll get into all that, obviously, when you're here. We'll sort of get the dowsing rods out. We'll have Maria Wheatley joining us as well. She'll show us a few things in the landscape, the invisible aspects, which are pretty powerful, to be honest with you. And even the location of it is very significant as well. If you divide, this is where it gets into all the numbers, if anyone's interested in that. I'm fascinated by this, obsessed by it. But if you divide 360 divided by 7 on a calculator, the latitude of Avebury comes out exactly. So what that means is the placement of it. So the placement of it is exactly 1/7 of the way around the Earth from the equator. If you go north all the way around, it's 1/7 up. If you go all the way around, it's exactly, absolutely precise, right through the middle. So it's almost like designed as a geodetic marker. And I think many sites are like this. I get into this in my book about earth grids, and I talk about this when we're on the tour as well, because I think it's really important. And we can go deeper. Yeah, you can see it there. You can see on the right hand side. You can see where Luxor is like part of the system as well. And so Avebury is 1/7 of the way around. It's absolutely fascinating when you start looking at weird stuff like this. And I guarantee you loads of sites in India have this kind of stuff going on as well. But yeah, this is West Kennet Long Barrow. So that you got Silbury Hill in the background. And then beyond that, this is where Avebury is, beyond the hills in the background there. So we're talking like a vast, absolutely gigantic landscape temple, gigantic, to say the least. And this goes back to 3600 BC. It's one of the oldest. It could be even older, actually. They found a whole bunch of skeletons in here. There it is in the snow, just to give you a bit of perspective. It won't be snowing here in July, in case anyone's wondering, if you haven't been here before. Hopefully. It usually does that in the cooler months. But it is pretty amazing. And that's what the interior kind of looks like. You can actually go inside it as well. And we go in there and we're going to get the drums out and do a bit of chanting, because there's resonance and acoustics, which obviously, you wouldn't think it with the rough hewn stones, but it is. It's beautifully created and has acoustic properties. Unlike the temples of India, which are beautifully precision carved and have acoustics. This does as well, incredibly. Even Avebury Stone Circle does. That's what's so interesting about this. There's actually acoustic properties in vast, wide landscape stone circles. And so, yeah, you have to kind of look at the invisible aspects of these sites when you visit them. There's another view of it there. And you see this giant stone, this blocking stone, they call it. That was actually placed there about 1,000 years after it was built. And because the original site was open and it faces east, so towards the rising sun around the equinoxes. But that was placed there, and that was dragged up the hill and placed there by the later culture who came in, probably the people who built Avebury around 2600 BC. And the whole thing is like 100 meters long or 300 feet long. The chamber itself is only about 30 to 40 feet long. But you can go inside it. It's got all these niches. There was loads of skeletons were found in there. But we don't think it was just a grave site. We think it was a multi-purpose site, used in it's a prominent position on a hilltop as well in the whole landscape. So yeah, we have to visit this place. This is like one of the key places. And just nearby, we have the beautiful Silbury Hill, which is the largest man-made mound in Europe. It's a staggering piece of work. It looks just like a normal mound, but it's got chambers within it. It was rebuilt from a smaller hill. It's got layers of organic, non-organic material. It collects water around this whole area around it as well, which you can see here. It's a photo I took a couple of years ago. And it is remarkable. I mean, why it's there, we don't know, because it's like in a valley almost. And so the top of it is no taller than the surrounding landscape. So why build it? Why build it there? And we think it's because it's like a geodetic marker that stretches across the entire landscape. So yeah, I mean, can't climb it, unfortunately, which, you can at night if you're wearing camo gear, which I've done. And, but yeah, you can get arrested technically, but, So we'll send Praveen up there without. Don't tell him that. How about that? And this just shows you the different layers of it as well, because it's fundamentally built, because it's all chalk landscape here. It's kind of a strange, it's like white, almost like white stone everywhere underneath the ground. This whole stretch going across southern England. So it would have been like a circular step pyramid, and it would have been white. It would have been quite something to witness. So it was like a pyramid in Britain. And not many people even realize that, that there's actually this kind of stuff going on here. And it's got lots of different elements to it. And it's an energetic hotspot as well. I tell you that. It's really powerful. And yeah, you can see like the ley lines that go through it. They connect up with all these sites. And this was all happening, probably Silbury Hill was around 2500 BC or thereabouts. So it was a bit after Avebury and quite a long while after West Kennet, but still part of the same landscape, which is epic in its own right. And there's also a mound nearby. Now we might be able to visit this, and it's in a private school for rich people, so you can't really go in there. But it's called Marlborough Mound, or Merlin's Mount in some traditions, and that's, for a long time they thought this was a Norman motte and bailey, which is basically something that's about 1,000 years old. But then they did some analysis of it and actually found it's the same age as Silbury Hill. And it's aligned to it as well. So that and this stretches several miles away. So we're talking, like 3 or 4 miles away. And it's got this geodetic nature to it, linking it with all these other sites. So yeah, again, you start digging, you start getting into this. And there's actually rumor that they're going to start excavating this as well, because they believe there could be chambers inside it. This is all just news that's come out recently. So if we can, I will endeavor to get us access to here. And the last time we went there, it was quite funny. I was with my group, my little group, and and there was some kind of garden party going on in there. So rather than get permission, we just wandered in, pretended we were guests of the garden party, and even ate some of their buffet before climbing the mount. So that was quite fun. So if there's a garden party or a buffet, we'll go in and help ourselves. Maybe not. Maybe I should stick by the rules. But
you see, this is related to people think it was built by Merlin.
Yeah, they think it's a burial place of Merlin. Actually, that's one of the reasons they want to dig it. Get into it. But yeah,
give people a few words about Merlin, because not everybody's familiar with the giants building Stonehenge in the medieval book about Merlin. Can you tell us like a gist of who he is?
Yeah, so Merlin, he's appeared in different mythologies all through ancient Britain, going way back, usually into Wales originally. But there was a book called The History of the Kings of Britain, written by Geoffrey of Monmouth in the 1100s. And it talked about all these stories about Stonehenge, the stones coming over from Africa to Ireland. And then eventually Merlin had to be sent to Ireland to collect the stones from the site called Killarus, where they were. And it was called the Giant's Dance in Ireland. And he had to go over there because the 15,000 strong army of Uther Pendragon they went over there and they couldn't move any of the stones. So they sent Merlin, the magician, over there, the wizard, to kind of do this. Think of Gandalf. This is like Gandalf, where that whole mythos came from in Lord of the Rings. And so they sent him over, and there's all these different traditions that they say that he used sleight and magic to bring them over to England without any effort. Other stories, different versions of the book, the very early books, going back to the 1100s, they say he used technology like engineering and different kind of technologies to bring it over. And so there's different variations on that. And we'll get into some of that here, because there's evidence of the way they work the stone. We'll see it when we go inside Stonehenge as well. We've got a private access visit. But yeah, so that's generally the story of Merlin. There's some accounts, very rare accounts, they do talk about him being a giant himself. Generally, he's like the magician. He's like the kind of magician or wizard of the kings who work with them, a bit like Gandalf is to, like, in Lord of the Rings to the king, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the same principle. But actually the stories go way back. There is some evidence that he actually existed, and there were these people. Even the Arthurian mythos, which is partly based on, is, there's some evidence that there were people called Arthur who were ruling and were these brilliant leaders back, thousands of years ago. And so, yeah, you've got to get into the Merlin mythos if you come over here for sure. So this is, I don't know if you came here last time or not, but
No,
this
I didn't see
is,
the Huffington Forest. No.
but this is another thing linked with Arthur as well. Okay, so it's called the Uffington White Horse. This is further north, so we have to drive for about an hour and 30 minutes to get there. But this is beyond Avebury, basically, another hour beyond Avebury. Now, there's a story of Arthur here as well, because Arthur's always associated with Merlin. That there's a mound here that he slew the dragon on, and it created this kind of pool of blood that was toxic, and it kind of made this hole in the ground, which we'll get to see when we go there. But people say this is actually on the same alignment, same ley line, actually, as Avebury and West Kennet. The same alignment that goes across the country. So this is called Uffington White Horse, but we think it's Uffington Dragon. We think it's a very ancient, and this goes back at least 3,000 years. And so this is and we definitely got to go up here. This is one of the, you don't often get to see something this vast. You can see how big it is with the people up on the head there. And it's got this very abstract design to it as well, which I find really interesting. And also, yeah, you can see it up on the hill there on the left. And you've got Uffington Hill Fort, and you get crop circles all over this area. You do around Avebury and Stonehenge as well, mind you. In fact, we've had several this year already. So we'll get onto that at the very last bit of this this kind of interview.
Are we gonna see some crop circles?
Yeah, of course. It's our duty to take people to crop circles. My God, I can't believe they've started appearing already, which is a good sign. It means there's going to be a lot more to explore. Now, getting permission, I have to sort of organise permission to go into them with the landowners and things like that. You can't just trample in them with like a group. But I'll deal with all that because it's worth it. It's worth the effort. I might have to, give them a wodge of cash just to kind of keep them sweet, as you have to do in many places. But usually the farmers are quite open to hard cash in their palm. So that's a whole other thing. But this is and this is also part of this ancient trackway that goes on the hills here, all the way down past Avebury, all the way down to southeast England, called the Ridgeway. And all along here, you have mounds, you have megalithic sites. It was the old trackway. It actually goes back to like 10,000 years old, some of it. When it gets to East Anglia, it's called the Icknield Way. That links up with sites up there as well. And this is on it as well. This is Wayland Smithy Longbarrow. This goes back to 3,700 BC. And this is the site we'll see. It's in this beautiful copse of trees. And this is absolutely remarkable, actually. This is a beautiful long barrow. It's like West Kennet long barrow, but much more kind of hidden. And we get to go inside here. It actually goes back even older. There was an earlier big timber structure with, actual, timber posts, huge great things in place here. And there's even a legend of a giant associated with this. And it goes back to the Danish giants, Wayland and his father and so forth, and they were said to be related to the swan, and they would fly over and actually fly through the sky and land at these places. And the tradition states that if you bring your horse here at night, because it's a smithy, so it's a lot to do with like putting horseshoes on, the metal horseshoes on, the hoofs of these mares and horses. If you go there and you leave the horseshoe and you leave a penny or any amount of cash, when you come back, it will be done in the morning magically by the giant Wayland. Well, his father was the giant Wade, really. Wade was the giant. Wayland wasn't such a giant. But there's all these strange associations and myths you find linked with these sites, which I find absolutely fascinating, And it could give a little indication of the purpose of these sites, like who was involved in constructing them. And that's what it looks like from above. So in this beautiful kind of copse of trees in this particular area. This is just one of our groups hanging out there, which we'll get to do. Usually we take our own lunch there as well, so we have like a picnic. It's a good place for it. And this is kind of one of the old images of when it was first being excavated. So it shows you like the kind of, it's been slightly reconstructed just to put it back into place. So talking of giants, if you want to get into this is Stanton Drew, triple stone circles. Again, another site. This time it's up in Somerset. So we're heading west from where we're staying in Amesbury. And this is a triple stone circle, and with extra features. Stanton drew triple stone circles, yeah. And this is like third largest stone circle in Britain, next to Avebury and Long Meg, and also possibly this one on Orkney, which is potentially the same size as well. And this it shows you the map of it here. And this is a great place. I mean, I love this place. I go here quite a lot just to hang out. And of course, the pub nearby is called the Druid's Arms, of course. So we might go for a swift pint in there if we get a chance, but we'll see if that's appropriate or not. And there's lots of stuff in this landscape though. So we have this tradition here. If you look on the left there, we have this almost like Cyclops tradition, where they're actually called the Kangic Giants. They were said to roam Somerset, and they're actually supposed to have built Stonehenge as well. We get into this in our Giants Stonehenge book, actually, and but it's said one of the traditions you get when you start looking into it, and the interesting thing is that the stones here are like conglomerate. They're like Devonian shale, it's called, different type of rock, and it's like a conglomerate. So it's almost like pebbles, it's almost like in a cement pebble mix, naturally done. But in the tradition, it states that the Kangic Giants created this by melting the stone to dust and then reforming it, much like you get with the Cyclops traditions in Greece and the Mediterranean. So I find that really intriguing. And they also were said to have built Stonehenge. And this is from a book that goes back to the 1600s that we uncovered. So we were quite surprised by all that. And so there's all these traditions and loads of skeletons and bones and being found throughout this whole area. And the thing about this, when they did a scan of it, like a GPR scan, they actually found that, we're talking like a huge stone circle here, and a big ditch around it, but they found these concentric wooden post holes, like in multiple circles, like concentric circles, these giant wooden posts. And it would have looked like something like this originally. So it was a major site. There's not a huge amount left of it now. A lot of the stones have fallen, the wood's disappeared. But this is what it would have looked like. And so,
what was the purpose of it?
Well, no, we're not. People aren't sure. I mean, that's the thing about the sites in Britain. People don't really know. I mean, there's lots of speculation by the archaeologists, but there's no absolute surety. I mean, the good thing is many of them have astronomical alignment, so you can't really fake that. They're definitely astronomically aligned. There's also energy associated with these sites, which you can feel. Sensitive people can feel it a lot. It's really profound. But this one, it seems like major ceremonial. Like you're walking into it. You've got all these wooden posts and these giant concentric circles. This huge henge around it as well. This ditch and bank system. And then you've got other circles all nearby. You've got megaliths nearby. You've got these dolmens up on the hills. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of almost hidden in this valley again, which is pretty interesting. And this is like the beautiful landscape of Somerset, going into Avon, it's called. So you're going towards Bristol here. And this is like an old antiquarian image of the landscape there with the circles within it, done by William Stukeley in 1723. So this has been known about for a long time. And there's lots of, the other thing is they knew north, south, east, west as well, because if you start aligning these all up, you realize that they had an understanding of the cardinal directions, of geometrical placement in the landscape and other such things. This is the Cove. This is actually just in that area. It's the same part of the same complex. This is older, in fact. This is probably a long barrow, which has now had a church built next to it, of course, and the Druid Arms pub. This is actually in the garden of the pub, which we have to go in to use the bathroom there. So we're definitely going to be visiting this place. But yes, so this whole area is absolutely beautiful around Somerset. Traditionally, this is an area where the cider actually is made from apples. This is like the whole traditional kind of thing here. It's not really beer in this part of the country. Here's just a little kind of clip, which you can see, just shows you it's actually a really old clip on an old drone that I took, unfortunately. I've actually got better footage than this. And but this just shows you the scale of it. And they're perfect circles as well. And then there's a whole avenue that actually used to go down to a river, down to a stream as well. And there's just me and my buddies walking about in it, kind of getting getting the whole vibe of it. So it's a pretty impressive place when you start. And also, like, usually there's JJ, usually no one there. Honestly, it's like one of the most mind-blowing sights in all of Britain. And you go there, no one goes there. You can have hours there, no one's there. So it's quite a beautiful opportunity to kind of visit these sites. And this just shows you the landscapes. This is like the Somerset in the top part going down into Dorset, the southern part there. So these are actually from my book. This is where all the giant accounts we've found are located. So you've got Stanton Drew is actually kind of in that map somewhere or other. But you have the whole Glastonbury landscape, which we're going to get into, which is where we do our conference as well, actually. And all around here, though, this is where these skeletons. This is actually reported. This was actually reported in a book from the 1500s again, but called The Giants of Wales, and some other books as well, where they found all these skeletons and bones around this area, which they linked with these Kangic giants. And so, and lots of them were on display in pubs, funnily enough, in different medical places and things like this. People had them in their private possession. Many of them have disappeared now, unfortunately. But, when you get into Glastonbury, that's where it kind of gets a bit mystical, shall we say. This is like the kind of mystical town of where we're going to be visiting. So we spent a day here at Stanton Drew, which is north of here. And you've got, this is the Abbey. You've got Wirral Hill in the background there. But as we rotate around here, you actually get to see the Tor, which is very close by. It's like the giant, huge beacon hill. You can see it for miles around. But the Abbey itself and the town is very ancient. It goes way back before the Abbey was built, and it's actually one of the earliest abbeys in Britain. But the thing about this is that a giant skeleton was found in the exact location of the Abbey, which was 9 feet tall. And this is back in 1191. We're talking, 1,000 years ago. So that is insane. I mean, I'll show you some images of some illustrations and some other things. I'm just waiting for this drone to get around to look at the Tor, which you'll see in the background. There you go. You can just see it coming into view now. And actually, my buddy lives in that little house in the car park there. And this is just, this whole town is amazing. I mean, it's not even a town. It's like a village. It's a one-street town. And there's the Tor, which we're going to climb. We take our time. Don't worry. You've got sacred springs there, the white and the red spring, Chalice Well, where you get this beautiful spring water which fed the whole area. And this just shows you a map of the town. The reason I want to show this is because these are the energy lines that have been recorded going through the town and up the Tor. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we're going to go and experience this. But this is an illustration by my good friend Yuri Leach, which we put in the book. And this just shows you this this whole thing about this giant being discovered in the Abbey is completely covered up. There's no mention of it when you visit the visitor centre at Glastonbury Abbey at all. Not a mention of it. And super annoying, because this is one of the most impressive discoveries. They claim, so what happened was in 1191, there's all these monks around, linked. This is one of the earliest abbeys. And they were trying to attract more pilgrims, tourists, they call them, really pilgrims, they call them, to the site. And so they dug down because they heard this rumor, which had come actually from the royal family, that there was the burial of King Arthur or special personages was found within the grounds of St Dunstan's, which was the abbey location. It's called St Dunstan's. So they dug down and they found this sort of lead cross. This lead cross had inscribed, it's like this big, and it had inscribed on it, "Here lies the remains of King Arthur and Guinevere." And they were like, what the hell? So they kept digging down, and when they got to 16 feet down, they discovered, remarkably, a giant wooden oak coffin with a 9-foot tall skeleton within it, with a rotting, rusty sword and artifacts. They found a woman's skeleton of a normal size with blonde hair lock in her hair. And they completely blew them away. I mean, the skeleton was described as being so large you could pass your fist through the eye socket. And they thought, well, this must be the...
Did you say it was a woman? It was a female?
It was two... Well, in some accounts, there's two different accounts. So one of the accounts, there was two skeletons. the giant skeleton of a male and a woman skeleton, a female skeleton as well. She wasn't a giant, though, but the giant skeleton, they could pass their fist through the eye socket. It was that big, which I think is pretty amazing. Actually, that's the tour. Let's stick with this for 1 second, because this is, so that they thought, because they found this lead cross. Now, people think the lead cross was a hoax. They're not sure. And it was just to kind of say, all these stories, because this was at the time when the history of the kings of Britain was written, in the 1100s. It was all a big thing, King Arthur going around. So they said this was the grave of King Arthur. The giant was King Arthur. Clearly it wasn't. This was probably one of the Kangig giants, in our opinion, mine and Jim Vieira's opinion. And this was much, much earlier than Arthur would have existed, which was probably around the 6th century, is the Arthurian kind of stories. And so that really got us, basically. That made us realize. But then this whole story, because they announced it was King Arthur, it attracted loads of people to witness this. And then I think within 100 years of this, it became known as Avalon, because in the Arthurian stories, there was this mystical land of Avalon. No one knew where it was, so they kind of put Glastonbury as Avalon. But 100 years later, there was this big ceremony, big pomp and ceremony thing going on. Well, the royal family came to it to rebury the remains of the giant in this giant marble sarcophagus in another part of the abbey. And it got buried there. It got recorded. It's part of the history of the whole town and of Britain and everything. But then it got destroyed when the dissolution of the monasteries was happening with King Henry VIII a few hundred years later. And so it got destroyed, the sarcophagus that it is buried in, and the skeleton disappeared as well. But parts of the sarcophagus and allegedly the bones are located in secret spots around Glastonbury. And some of the sarcophagus, the marble, has actually been found. And in fact, 3 years ago, someone went to the abbey to break into where it had been buried and started digging down in the middle of the night to try and dig up the giant, and got caught. It wasn't me, by the way. And so it was, so people are still fascinated by this, so there's a whole, this is just tip of the iceberg. When you come over, I'll give you the full story, show you all the locations, because they even found these sort of like obelisk pyramid type things as well under the ground. Again, another whole story associated with that. But this is all linked with the tour. This is linked with the Glastonbury tour. This is us lot. So here we are on the tour. This is our Megalithomania group, and we'll do this as well. I bring my drone out everywhere, and but check this out. And it's got a little bit of music with it, so so let's just have a little moment to pause and appreciate the landscape around this particular part of the world. So this is interesting. This is the work of John Michell, and he was very much into the Glastonbury tour, big time. He's our big hero, our mentor. He founded the conference with us, and he found this alignment really between here and some other places in the area. Specifically, this is the alignment here, St. Michael alignment. It links with Avebury. It links with St. Michael's Mount. It links with some sites we're going to be visiting, Glastonbury and other places. And not only did he find a straight line alignment, which is a Mayday, like a Beltane alignment, he also found energy lines associated with it as well, which was really the work of Hamish Miller and Paul Broadhurst. So all these lines, I was saying, he got another image here showing you the different whole alignment. It was actually this that really woke me up to the whole ancient mysteries world when I first looked into this. And he found that there was another hill, I think called Boroughbridge Mump, and this is what he found. There was an alignment between it. Then he determined there was a line, that alignment was all across the country. And then there was all this research that back in the 1920s which we're going to look at when we go to Glastonbury, of this zodiac, giant landscape zodiac marked across the entire landscape. Now, this really got me. So there's Borough Mump, and you can see how similar it looks to Glastonbury Tor. Even like we have a dog on the whole thing as well, called the Gert dog. I bring this up because this is part of the landscape zodiac. There's actually a guardian dog of it, and we're getting into esoteric world here. So maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but weirdly, the tail. I used to live on the tail of the dog, and the road that is called is Wag Drove, wagging the tail. And so, what the hell? And it's difficult to kind of comprehend. But there's even a landscape unicorn. Now, this is sort of stuff that isn't really publicly known. I'm putting this here as a little special edition here. I want to just let people know about this. On the right side there, you've got like Leo the lion. You've got the rest of the zodiac. We're not going to go into this now, but I want to just mention this and blow your mind, because you can see this when you look at a road atlas. It's absolutely insane. And there you have other effigies as well, all across this whole kind of landscape part of the world. So so we've got the Cern Giant as well, which I think is absolutely mind-blowing. This is another hill figure, like the Uffington White Horse, a bit like the Glastonbury Zodiac, but a bit different. This is like, 120 feet tall, something crazy like that. It's us lot sitting down the bottom there. You can actually see us. And you can see he's kind of showing all his glory, which is a shocker to us British people. But maybe it's a representation of a lingam. Who knows? But there's lots of associations with the stars with this site as well. There's some old imagery that's been around for hundreds of years. There's some of megalithomaniacs kind of checking them out.
So we do get to walk inside the effigy.
Officially, you're not allowed to, but we can get up on the left there. You can see the people. We can certainly get there, and it's okay. You can kind of go in there sometimes, because sometimes they let it overgrow. And it doesn't really matter then, but you just can't do any damage to it. That's the main thing. And you can see the kind of white.
We'll try to get in there.
We'll certainly get close to it. And I'll have my drone, so we'll be able to see it.
And, what's the story behind him showing off his?
I think it's a fertility symbol, it's almost like a kind of manly fertility symbol. I mean, he looks like he's wielding a club going for the attack as well. So there is that. But there's suggestions that he was holding stuff in his left hand, and it's all symbolic. And the right hand actually might be an image of, if you look at the astronomy here, you've got Draconis up there, but it could be a Herculean image of Orion and things like this. So there's different interpretations, but it is fascinating.
What's it supposed to be?
Well, there's a massive debate about that, to be honest with you. Some people think it's a few hundred years old. Other people think it's been there for thousands of years. So there's variations on that. The whole landscape is beautiful. And there's more. I mean, this is all in Dorset. So this is south of Wiltshire, basically, south of Somerset, going towards the coast. We have this site as well. This is actually, again, where you get this a lot in England. You have this tradition of building churches on ancient megalithic sites. So we have this at Knowlton Henge. This henge used to have, had a stone circle within it. And it goes way back, way back, and all around it, even where that big farm is in the back, that's another giant henge. You've got mounds, you've got this 7-mile long cursus as well, which is insane. Like this parallel earthen bank and ditch system for 7 miles. You have one near Stonehenge, which is nearly 2 miles long, but this one's 7 miles long. So we're going to be visiting here. These are all some of the other structures that have been found around it. And this is a great spot, really cool spot. And not many people realize the significance of this as well. And this is like the ruins within it. And if you actually look carefully, you can actually see stones, quite large stones at the bottom of the church. But if we come back to Salisbury, I want to mention this. This is the giant I mentioned earlier. This dude, 18 feet tall, not an actual person, this is an effigy, was paraded round Salisbury, the nearest city to Stonehenge, since 1474. And he became known as St. Christopher. Anybody who knows about St. Christopher will know that he was a Canaanite giant from the Bible lands who was said to have brought Jesus over the river when he was a baby. And so we have this strange Canaanite giant connection with the Stonehenge area. So what on earth is going on here? And we can now go and visit him and say hello and get a photo with him in the museum in Salisbury, which we'll be doing. So, and yeah, like I say, this is St. Christopher, and there's some information about him here. He was also known as a dog-headed giant, but that's actually they got mixed up with Canaanite and canine for some reason. But all these accounts of him, like he was a real person, he was like 7.5 feet tall. Some people say he was 12 feet tall or 18 feet tall. You know, it's a pretty strange story. And why is he associated with this area near Stonehenge? Now, what's interesting is that he was paraded around Salisbury at the time of the summer solstice. You know, it's called St. John the Baptist Day, which is the 24th of June. It's like 3 days after the solstice, which is bizarre. So we have all that, and these some of the giant discoveries in this whole area as well, like going from Avebury, Stonehenge, all the way down to Dorset and other such places. So yeah, you kind of start getting into this, and you realise the whole landscape is littered with giant myths, megaliths, these giant hills, and everything else. And this is an image, what I believe is of like the Kangik giants. This was actually, you know, created in the 1660s. You got a normal person on the right there, and then the giants next to him. And this was giants were a big thing. You know, people, you know, hundreds of years people have been talking about them, and like, you know, it's been part of the kind of fabric of kind of myths and society, which is quite bizarre. This is actually the actual account. So we're coming back now to Stonehenge area. I wanted just to come back home again. So this is the actual account from 1719 of a giant skeleton, 9'4". This is the account of the 14-foot 10-inch skeleton from Thomas Eliot, and it's published in a book in 1802. Actually took place in the 1500s. And it's an image that my friend Dan Lish did for our book, because not only did they find the skeleton, 14 foot 10 inches, they found this book with this strange script embedded on it, and also this giant lead disc, like lead and tin disc, with all these inscriptions. They couldn't understand the language of it. Was it Canaanite? Is the connection, you know, being made here? Both of those have disappeared. The skeleton crumbled to dust, vanished, and it was at a place called Ivy Church Priory, which I've actually been to. Nothing's left there now, but it just shows you that there's a reality to this. And then we have the alignments. My God, we'll get into some of this between Stonehenge and other places across the country. And we'll get into this when people get here, because you don't realize it, but you're standing in this giant geometrical grid across the country, wherever you are. And everything's been placed according to very specific geometrical and numerical and measured traditions, which I find absolutely mind-blowing, being the nerd that I am. And then we come back to Stonehenge again. So let's just give a little reverence to the National Temple, which is just over there. And yeah, we'll be doing this with our group, going inside it, getting up close and personal with the stones. You must remember, this is as well one of the places, it's the only stone circle like this in Britain. All the other stone circles are rough-hewn stones. This is like every stone is carved into shape. And you even get very strange carvings. Oh, in fact, there's actually me and you there, actually. Okay. What are we saying? Actually, let's see what we were saying here, because this is, there's us hanging out at Stonehenge, getting into all the giant myths when you were here last time.
So how was the Stonehenge built? Was it built using advanced technology, or do you support the idea that they were manually carrying it from everywhere and putting it here? I mean, look at the stones, right? What, like 19-foot tall structures, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of them, you know, came from Westwards, Fifield Down area near Avebury. Others came all the way from Wales and the Preseli Mountains. And in tradition, if you look at the early stories, it said that Merlin brought them over from Ireland, in fact, not Wales, from a place called Killaroos. And he used some kind of technology in some of the stories, but others say he levitated or kind of magicked the stones over. And he used gears and levers, as some of the stories state. But if you go back even further, the earlier stories talk about the stones originally coming from the furthest reaches of Africa.
Oh.
And if you go to Tripoli in Libya, you actually find trilithon type structures there. And so that's kind of strange how you have actual structures that look like this from
Oh,
the
really?
place
I
in
didn't know.
yeah, from the place in legend they were supposed to come from. As for the actual moving of the stones, one of the stones, or two or three possibly, have scoop marks on them, like you get in Egypt and Peru and other places. So some people have suggested that it could be like geopolymer, like they've actually softened the stone. And that was part of the technique, because there were traditions from a book that came out in 1666 called A Fool's Bolt Soon Shot at Stonehenge, where it states, and in the legends, that it was built by giants called the Kangik giants, who built it as a trophy of one of their victories. But in it, they say they used to turn stone to dust and kind of powder and reform it into the shapes we see here and at another site called Stanton Drew. So what is that all about? Is that a memory of a technique they had where they could actually manipulate, change the structure of the stone, and the scoop marks evidence of that?
Yeah.
The jury's out, but there's a lot of strangeness really around how they did it.
Okay.
And in the car park, what was once the car park, there used to be these giant blobs of paint. They've moved the car park now. Now they've got these wooden things. And these marked where giant, huge, megalithic kind of post holes where wooden posts would have gone in. But the weird thing is, these date back to 10,000 years old rather than 5,000 years old, where the stones of Stonehenge date to. So yeah, it's pretty weird. And
10,000.
10,000, yeah, because there's a whole Mesolithic, super ancient site here called Blickmead, which maybe we'll get to go to. I don't know. There's nothing there really now, but there's a settlement in this area going back 10,000 years. In fact, where we're staying in the Antrobus Hotel, which is the oldest hotel in Amesbury, that's right next to Blickmead, and so that is literally in the land of the ancients. And and Amesbury is the oldest inhabited town in Britain. It's constantly inhabited since 10,000 years ago. All different cultures, the Romans and everyone. And so we're going to get to see all that, some of it at least. It just shows you some of the imagery here. But look at the stone on the top right there, the carvings on that. And if we, this is the one of the earliest images of Merlin. We were talking about Merlin earlier, and this is from the 12th century. My friend Yuri made this other image here. And weirdly, one of the weirdest things as well is that we have these are in Libya. Now, what's interesting about this? These are trilithons, like Stonehenge, in Libya, North Africa. And in tradition, Merlin brought the stones over from North Africa here, and then brought them to England.
I think Merlin got the stones from Libya.
Well, there's a whole myth that goes way back. The giants brought the stones from the furthest reaches of North Africa. But weirdly, in North Africa, you have the same thing. You even have mortise and tenon joints, which you have on the stones of Stonehenge, little nubs with holes in the top ones. So that is weird. And even in Tunisia, you get them as well, and traditions of giants there. It's utterly bizarre when you start getting into the global network of this. And obviously, we have the giants of North America. That's a whole other story. Myself and Jim Vieira collected 1,000 accounts from there. You've done research on this. But the stones in Stonehenge have these scoop marks on them. Now, you'll probably recognize these, and probably many of the viewers here will as well. You get this in other places. We've got quite a few examples in Stonehenge. But look, you get them in Machu Picchu on the bottom left and Aswan Quarry in Egypt on the bottom right. So what is going on here? And you remember the stories of the Kangik giants. They were said to have softened the stones and reshaped them back into their size and shape, as though they were scooping them and shaping them. And we have evidence of the scoop mark. You can't scoop mark stone like this. This is sarsen. It's called sarsen. This is like a type of hard sandstone. You just can't do that. It's not possible. So it's bizarre. All these megalithic sites, you probably get it in India, you get it in Easter Island and other places. Why is that there? Why are they almost like softening the stone? It's like some like through vibration or technology sort of. I don't know what it is, but that is there. And we'll get up close and I'll point these out to people as well, because this is absolutely astonishing in my opinion. And then you get the celebrations at Stonehenge. Now, there aren't going to be this many people when we go there. But if you come on the June the 21st, which I'll be doing this year, I'll be reporting back from there as well. You actually get 30,000 people go to Stonehenge. And the reason they do this is because of the summer solstice sunrise, which is aligned. And we're actually going in for the sunset on our tour, but or near the sunset, which is much better than getting up at 5 a.m. But the Druids still do ceremonies here now. This is happening. This is a living tradition. And I love that. I love the fact that there's like this neo-Druid tradition. And they keep doing this work. And they actually have to campaign and harass English heritage to get permission to go in there and make it open access on the solstice. But luckily, we're going to be going in there as well on our tour. Even myself and JJ got hand-fasted there as well. And actually got recorded. We got hand-fasted twice there, actually. That's kind of funny. And
hand fasting, what's that?
yes, it's like a druidic pagan tradition of marriage. It lasts for a year and a day. So you have to kind of keep doing it every year. But and we did that. And like the problem is, JJ was terrified because we had 30,000 people stopped, went silent, and watched our ceremony. And we didn't think that was going to happen, and it was terrifying. So we got a beautiful connection with that place as well, which we're very proud of.
And we're going inside the Stonehenge, right?
Yeah, we'll be inside the Stonehenge, like you see here. Yeah, we're going inside the stones. We get a whole hour to do that, which is awesome. I've got to be honest with you, and it's a brilliant time of year to do it. You get really interesting. It's all about the shadows. There's very, very intricate. When you get the shadows at certain times taking place throughout the year. This time of year, we're going in July, you get these beautiful shadows. So what happens is stuff almost like imagery comes out of the stones, as though the stones encode the secret information and stories. And so I think that was part of the design. I think they had this subtle understanding of the shadow. And because even on the solstice, you actually have the shadow of the heel stone penetrates right into the center of the stone circle. Through the gap in the stones almost, and it hits the altar stone, which is a whole other story, which me and Andrew Collins have been researching. There's me and JJ are doing our thing. She's absolutely terrified about to faint. Here we go. So yeah, that you can see the shadow there. You see the heel stone on the right, and it penetrates right into the stones.
Yeah.
So it's pretty beautiful. It's all about shadow and light and alignments and everything else, and fertility. I mean, this is very much like a lingam. I mean, this is like the shadow of the lingam almost. And this is something Terence Meaden.
And who discovered this? Was it John Mitchell?
No, I think it was Terence Meaden. Yeah. I think he kind of came up with this whole idea that these megaliths were like lingams, and they were like fertility systems in place in the landscape, which were then ceremonies and rituals, and then agriculture developed around. And that'll be us when we go in the stones, obviously. It's pretty amazing journey. But Terence Meaden is amazing. I mean, if we can, he will join us if he's available, and he can. But he's very old, and he's actually been in hospital recently, so he's not been very well. But if he can, he will join us and give us the story about this. Maybe if we invite him, he'll come. He'll be in a wheelchair, but he's amazing. And we're going to have Simon Banton with us as well. He's an expert archaeoastronomer, one of the top researchers on Stonehenge. He'll be joining us there as well. And I'm looking forward to it. And he's done a lot of research on various aspects like the alignments, the geometry and everything else. And you can just go on and on with this. You can go deeper and deeper into the mysteries of Stonehenge. One stone circle creates such a phenomenon is quite amazing. Oh, we're going back to the car park blobs again. We don't need that. And and also, the other thing, got to mention this before we finish. This is really interesting, is that there was a natural solstice alignment in place 10,000 years ago at Stonehenge, before any stones were put there, by the way. There were these natural ridges that marked the solstice alignment. I'm not going to say anything more because I've got a big article coming out on grahamhancock.com in time for the summer solstice, so look out for that. I get into this and other sites that have this super ancient solstice alignment. And Britain is at the core of it. That's the thing. As well as obviously Karahan Tepe, a whole other area I've been looking into. And then we have the crop circles, which appear all over this part of the country. Did you come into a crop circle last time when we were here? There were
I
some?
did.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
This is one of the highlights of last year. This is this giant one down on the south coast in Dorset, and now there's a big story about are these man-made? Do aliens or fairies make them? Who knows? But that could be us in July. And then we have this one. This actually occurred this year. This is from a week or two ago. This occurred in early May. So this is happening right now. We have this one as well. This is the latest one. This happened just last week. And so it's already begun. There's already stuff happening in the landscape here. And this is a place called White Sheet Hill. It's actually a big hill fort. And so we're going to enjoy some of these as well. Now, we'll get into what we think really makes them or who we think makes them. Because in some cases, it could be like Banksy-like land art, or there's a tradition. I'll talk about this in one of my talks when you come over. There's traditions of crop circles going back thousands of years that no one knows about, and I've got evidence of it. And there's a couple of researchers have been looking into this. Terry Wilson, one of them, and it blows my mind. Even in other countries all around the world, and so it's part of the strange mystical element of why this part of the world is so intriguing. Because we have these turn up, nowhere else really gets them nowadays. We still get them. We have like 20, 30 of these every year, and so that is beautifully created. Whatever does them, I must admit. And this is it. And we invite your friends and explorers to come and join us, because I get excited, because this is like, I get to show people like my local landscape. It's kind of fun, I don't have to travel far from my home.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Hugh can literally walk to the Stonehenge, and he even has, I call it the personal mound. Right, he lives right next to an ancient mound too. It's literally just you come out of his house and you can see the mound. And we did walk to the Stonehenge. It's right there. Hugh knows, almost all ancient sites of England. He has visited. He spent many decades, probably his entire life, looking at ancient sites of England. So there is no better person than him to show us, the ancient sites. And if you go to the website, megalithomania.co.uk, you can sign up for this tour. This is from July 22nd to July 28th. And we're going to basically look at all the sites he just talked about. And obviously, Hugh Newman does a lot of conferences. He has written several books, and even his website name, Megalithomania, is actually coming from another book that was titled Megalithomania, which is basically a feeling you get. It's like a mania, an exalted feeling you get when you go and visit these megaliths. I didn't think it was real until I went to England and I visited all the sites with him. But it is a real feeling. You do get a mania. You do go crazy, literally just get very excited when you go and see these megaliths. There is some quality to them. And Hugh points out he has read, I would say that he has read almost all the books written about these ancient sites of England. He himself writes many books, and he has also gone back in time for many centuries looking up at, ancient texts as well. And he brings up very interesting points, like the shadow of the heel stone at the Stonehenge, kind of the shadow goes into the circle like a fertility symbol. That's amazing. And he gets all that very esoteric information as well. So for those of you who are watching, please do sign up for this tour. This is going to be a very interesting tour. You know that I've done several tours in Thailand, Cambodia. I have another tour in India. But this England tour, is going to be a very, very interesting and intriguing tour, because we're going to have a person who lives right there showing us all the ancient mysteries.
I look forward to it, Praveen, very much. It's going to be an epic journey. And I'm keen to get out in the landscape with you.
Well, thank you, Hugh. I really appreciate you explaining all the mysteries. It was really amazing to look at all the sites. Hugh does a lot of fun things. He plays the ancient stones in Avebury. He takes us into the Stonehenge. He takes us into all these little like megalithic sites and all that. It's very, very fun. So I do look forward myself to come there and look at all these ancient sites again. And I'll see you all in England, okay? Thank you, Hugh.
Thanks, Praveen. Take care. And I'll see you very soon.
Bye.